Cyclone Dikeledi's strength and threat increasing. So this latest storm threatening the northern tip of Madagascar once again, just like Cyclone Chido did last month, and I'm afraid the forecast is trending further west towards those islands, particularly Mayotte, that was severely impacted by that storm last month. This one could be doing the same thing. Well, it is strengthening right now, currently at 65 miles per hour winds and 105 kilometers per hour sustained, an estimated pressure of 987 millibars, and it is moving west at 17 miles per hour or 27 kilometers per hour, relatively fast moving, but not quite as much as yesterday. This is the latest as of 6 p.m. Eastern African time this January 10th. Well, the storm has consolidated its wind field. It's quite a tight wind gradient now, extending out up to 60 nautical miles in the southern two quadrants, and only 25 nautical miles on the northeastern side, which is playing catch-up. It is 516 kilometers from Sambava, which we've placed under an unofficial cyclone warning, 521 from Antalaha, 627 from Antsiranana, 1057 from Mayotte, which we've also placed under an unofficial cyclone warning, and from Nacala on the coast of Mozambique, 1539 kilometers, which at the moment we have under a cyclone watch. Possibilities there for storm conditions in the next 72 hours for all of those locations, and in those orange zones in the next 48 hours or 2 days. Well, the wind potential is increasing, of course, but it is still compact, and rainfall is still likely to be the greater hazard overall, mainly in the storm's landfall area in Madagascar and its passage near Mayotte and at Mozambique. Rainfall amounts could reach 250 millimeters in large areas, with flash flooding likely as the core of the storm moves over, and more prolonged flooding issues in areas that are indirectly impacted by the storm, such as the coast of Madagascar west coast and the eastern coast of Mozambique. Well, here's the forecast then, latest estimate here, and it's pretty clear cut until it gets into the Mozambique Channel into early next week. Land interaction with the east coast of Mozambique will play a big part into what happens next, and by the time we get into the middle of next week there, the storm will be sinking down through the Mozambique Channel. But I must stress, it is a very uncertain forecast at this point, and it could go anywhere from southern Mozambique to the southern part of Madagascar. Well, 65 miles per hour now is our estimate. That is in line with NOAA ADT. Meteo France all the way up at 80 miles per hour already, and the storm is certainly heading in that direction. JTWC's last update was at 60 miles per hour, along with the SSEC ADT satellite estimate, but those are trending upwards. Here's the latest track from Meteo France, showing that they're expecting a hurricane equivalent storm impact there in the northern region of Madagascar, and then it will continue southwesterly, very close past to Mozambique, but maintaining intensity according to that forecast. If it does stay out to sea, then yes, that's very much a possibility. Here's our watches and warnings map. Once again, I must stress this is unofficial. The orange zones there showing that storm conditions are likely within 48 hours, and the yellow zones that storm conditions are possible within 72 hours. And these are the chances of storm force winds in select locations, obviously way up near 100% chance in northern Madagascar, and for parts of Mozambique there as well into the 70s percentage wise, but obviously Mayotte there as well, 91%, a real concern. This is what the latest GFS model has to say, and it calls for significant intensification up until landfall, and then it continues westerly almost all the way into Mozambique until it changes its mind at the last minute and then follows the coastline down, pretty much takes an arrow straight dive southwards there, according to that GFS run. But the ensembles have plenty of different scenarios out there as well. It's a fairly complex situation, difficult to forecast, but it eventually gets pulled down there, whether it's going to be as a remnant low or whether it will still be a fully fledged tropical cyclone. That will all depend on how much it interacts with land. There's the simulated radar showing that the northern side predominantly will have the highest rain rates, and quite a lot of it at times there, but also as a secondary area there in western Madagascar, sort of away from the main part of the storm, but tons of rain there for those areas in northwestern Madagascar in the next 5 to 7 days could cause some serious flooding issues indirectly from the storm. But the main crux of the storm, they're continuing southwards in that later part, not really affecting any land areas in that later period. Well, this is the rainfall totals then, what we might expect to see in the next 7 days, and those orange zones are numbers creeping up towards 250 millimeters or higher in some spots. And then you look at that big area spreading out over northwestern Madagascar on the eastern side of the storm throughout the next 7 days there. Near that potential landfall in Mozambique is around 6 inches, 150 millimeters. On Mayotte it could be over 250 millimeters, and similar for northern Madagascar. But actually the highest amount of rain now is for northwestern Madagascar, away from the center of the storm, where the banding from the edge of the storm will cause trailing bands, I would assume, and up to 13 inches of rainfall according to that forecast, over 300 millimeters. This will of course be helped by very warm sea surface temperatures. These numbers tend to read a little bit low, but you can see the real hot spot there is off that western coast of Madagascar, where all that rain is forecasted. Temperatures over 30 degrees Celsius probably in that area, which is tons of energy and tons of moisture potential for the storm. All around this area though, we're looking at minimums of 28 and getting up near 30 degrees all the way down to the southern tip of Madagascar, which means that this storm, if it stays over water, will have tons of energy. Looking at the latest satellite imagery, this is the latest from EUMETSAT, looking at the storm travelling pretty much due westwards and really blowing up a fair dome of moisture ahead of it there, approaching the coast of Madagascar already. You'll start to be seeing some little bits of precipitation now in those northern provinces. But the main core of the storm is still some distance away, as you can see here, and it is relatively small. I would say it is somewhat similar to Chido actually. I think Chido was a bit bigger by this point. Of course that one was a lot stronger, but this storm is gathering pace and momentum. It is gaining strength. It looks like it may just be starting to close out an eye wall there underneath those clouds, and as we look at this close-up visible imagery, there are signs of that there as well. Over the course of the day there, it was really tightening up its core. So interesting looking storm. It wouldn't surprise me at all if we saw an eye pop out by the time we get to tomorrow morning. You can look at this imagery live on the Force 13 website, force13.com/satellite, and you can follow our live tracker 24/7 on our YouTube channel. We are covering that storm, as well as Cyclone Chido, which was named by Fiji earlier today as well. That system out over near Tonga in the South Pacific. Thought I'd give that one a mention. But clearly looking at these cloud tops, they're still getting higher there. A few zones there into the -80s on that northern side, maybe not so flash on that southwestern side in those latest frames, but I'm pretty sure it will consolidate again in the near future. Looking at the weather in the areas that might be affected soon, the Mozambique Channel looking like this, a few storms blowing up in southwestern Madagascar, and a secondary little area there in parts of eastern Mozambique. And this is Mauritius and Reunion, where you can see a few small showers approaching Mauritius there this evening as the storm continues its trek west.